A few weeks after the release of Beetlejuice 2, you will be wondering when Part 1 came out. Since it is a rather forgotten film from 1988 that began to gain value when its director, Tim Burton, became the king of a style so particular that with just seeing his filmography, we realize it. Just like Batman from 1989 and Batman Returns from 1992, Edward Scissorhands, where he was going to meet one of his favorite actors, the great Johnny Depp, and then make many more films with him, since that particular style is what he seeks for his films, such as Sleepy Hollow, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in 2005, Corpse Bride, where he was the voice of the main character, Sweeney Todd, Alice in Wonderland, and Dark Shadows in 2012. That was the last film where he directed it, and they went their separate ways, a little because of his other great character, Jack Sparrow, and another, a little because of the actor's personal life, who was going through difficult times. He also directed Mars Attack in 1996. By the way, after reviewing this almost cult film, I was surprised by the number of figures that the film had. Although it was almost a failure at the box office, the public grew fond of it over time. Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, Pierce Brosnan, Sarah Jessica Parker, Michael Fox, Danny DeVito, Natalie Portman, among others. In this video, we review this particular film that at the time had great figures such as Alec Baldwin, Michael Keaton, and Winona Ryder, who by the way repeat the cast 35 years later. I think the film at the time was a world that would be more exploited with more resources without limitations of special effects by an animated series broadcast for 2 consecutive years and then was forgotten. As we will see, the years have taken a heavy toll in terms of special effects. Perhaps with the new installment, they can show off much more in this regard. Already at the beginning of the film, the director's seal is very evident, both in the typography, the music, and also the black humor characteristic of Tim Burton. Furthermore, it is a film not suitable for children since it is quite daring humor. The story begins in a small fictional town, Winter River. A very happy couple, the Maitlands. Barbara and Adam are on vacation decorating their country house, a particular infrastructure frequently visited in real life by fans. The actual location where the film was filmed is in East Corinth, Vermont, a particular heavily wooded area with white painted houses in the northern United States. Adam is played by Alec Baldwin, with a filmography as extensive as it is not very selective. With more than 70 films, he has only achieved just 3 nominations for Best Supporting Actor for his work in The Cooler, The Aviator, and The Departed, an excellent film by the way. Where he has had better luck is in his comedic role on 30 Rock, where he has earned recognition.
The Globe goes to Alec Baldwin, 30 Rock!
Thank you. I'm glad this isn't...
Alec Baldwin, 30 Rock!
These last few years have been complicated due to an accidental homicide during the filming of a movie in 2021, and it is still being investigated. Barbara is played by the great Geena Davis, who would have her acting peak just 2 years later for her portrayal of Thelma in Thelma and Louise, and we can recognize her in more current roles such as the mother in Stuart Little. In the first scenes, we notice that it is a very well-valued property, and even their real estate agent is insistent that they can sell it at a good price, but they prefer the tranquility of the town. And in a comment from the saleswoman to Barbara, she leaves her reflecting on the possibility of having children in the house. This is not explained, but it is suspected that it could be due to some reproductive difficulty. Adam spends his free time building a large model of the entire town and returning from shopping in what appears to be his own hardware store. They have an accident when they come across a dog on a bridge that causes them to fall into the water. They seem to survive without much trouble and are already home in the next scene. But they begin to notice strange things, like they have lost their reflection in the mirror, and also, when Adam tries to leave the house, he is transported to a supernatural world. And what seems to be a few minutes, when he is rescued by Barbara, she tells him that it was 2 hours. Here we see how the lack of technology for special effects has aged too much. Then they find a manual for the recently deceased, which just confirms that they are indeed ghosts now. They seem to take it easy, but time passes and the house is sold. The new owners arrive, the Dietz family, and here we present the new characters. Charles, a moderately successful real estate businessman, played by Jeffrey Jones, who ended his career in 2004 due to a conviction for possession of child pornography. His second wife, Delia, who is a sculptor and conceptual artist quite accustomed to the big city, played by Caherine O'Hara, well known for her role in Home Alone. And the daughter, Lydia, played by a brilliant Winona Ryder, who plays a young Gothic-style amateur photographer who holds a lot of resentment against her stepmother, since Delia is not her biological mother. The family is preparing to redecorate the house in an exotic style by Otho, his personal interior decorator. The couple tries to scare them away, causing a great scare, but they cannot see them and do not achieve much. The only one who can see them is Lydia, who takes the situation quite calmly and doesn't seem to care too much. Then, when they realize that they are useless to inspire fear and are a failure like ghosts. Reading the manual, they discover a way to ask for help, which is to draw a door. Thus, they manage to travel to a room in the afterlife, where they discover a whole fantastic world of ghosts waiting for the bureaucracy to be attended to. They are very well represented, and we can imagine what their death was like just by paying a little attention. They also learn that they must remain in the house for 125 years to avoid suffering a painful fate. There they are cared for by their social worker, Juno, who explains to them that her job is to scare away the Dietz family like any other ghost, so they could live in peace while waiting to leave limbo. After new attempts, they can't scare the Dietzes away either, and on the verge of giving up, they remember a very timely commercial where they saw a curious character, someone who calls himself a bioexorcist, who is dedicated to scaring away as if from a business. Treat. This curious and unpleasant character, whom Juno had warned them not to look for, and never to say her name out loud 3 times. Beetlejuice, played under all that makeup by the great Michael Keaton. 4 months have already passed in the world of the living, and the house is all remodeled, something that the Maitlands do not like at all. Lydia tells her parents about there being ghosts, but even with pictures of her, they don't believe her and they don't care. In desperation, they summon Betelgeuse and must dig into Adam's model to meet him, but it doesn't take them long to regret it, since his behavior is quite disgusting and rude. After some thought, they don't want him to help them. The particular ghost insists, and it is not that he not only wants to help them, but that he has other intentions, since he can only use his powers when he is summoned by naming him. The situation becomes complicated when Betelgeuse falls in love with Lydia, who caught her attention because of his particular Gothic style. One night, Delia organizes a dinner for some friends who come from New York, and during the conversation, Lydia comments that the house is haunted. At first, they don't believe her, but the Maitlands make a new attempt to scare them away by making them dance in a very curious way, and then causing a great scare. But this did not turn out as expected. Now everyone is more curious and wants to meet the ghosts. Both Charles and his boss are thinking about getting commercial revenue from these supernatural events, but he is not willing to make an investment in the town without having proof of the existence of ghosts. The Maitlands hide in the attic of the house and are harassed, but Betelgeuse intervenes, who has a very aggressive scaring style, endangering the lives of the Dietzes. The couple does not like this at all, as they have a much kinder and more humane attitude. After temporarily expelling him, naming him to force him to return to the model. They return to the world beyond for a new interview with Juno. But when we return, as we saw, a lot of time has passed in the world of the living. Lydia, she is somewhat depressed, or more than usual. In the model, she meets Beetlejuice and tries to encourage her to say his name 3 times with an ingenious charades game.
Hi, how are you?
Beetle.
God, okay.
Breakfast, orange beetle, beetle fruit.
But she doesn't fall into the trap, in an attempt to obtain proof of the existence of ghosts. Otho, using the manual for the recently deceased, which he had stolen when they were in the attic, begins to perform what he believes to be a seance and summons Barbara and Adam using their wedding clothes. But it doesn't turn out as expected. Since it starts successfully, but they begin to age quickly, the ritual went wrong, as Otho unknowingly performed an exorcism. Seeing the situation, Lydia desperately asks for help from Beetlejuice, who proposes that she marry him in exchange for saving them. One detail here is that a ghost who marries a living human gains more powers to wreak havoc on the mortal world. With no other option left, Lydia accepts. Making a triumphant entry, she manages to save them in time, expels everyone, and restores everything to normal. Now Beetlejuice is preparing the wedding, with a more than private minister for the ceremony, and Charles and Delia as obligated witnesses. While the event is taking place, the Maitlands arrive to interrupt. They do everything possible to stop the wedding, but when it seemed that they were not going to succeed,
Come on.
Barbara arrives riding a worm that devours Beetlejuice. Now the two couples are going to live in harmony in the house. Lydia becomes very fond of the Maitlands and encourages them to use their powers from time to time. Meanwhile, Beetlejuice is in the waiting room of the afterlife, and when he tries to steal a ticket to have a date a little sooner from a person in the waiting room, he discovers it and shrinks his head. And the movie ends. As we see, the plot and the atmosphere is something similar to the Addams Family, but with the particular vision of Tim Burton. The film is quite short, only 1 hour and a half, without including the introduction and credits. Perhaps there were cutscenes. Since Lydia's affection for the Maitlands is quite sudden and undeveloped, she sees them once, and in the next scene, Barbara already lived. As for specialized critics, it won the Oscar for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. It was also nominated in the same category at the British Awards. Along with RoboCop, and with whom he finally lost the statuette, The Last Emperor. Without a doubt, with the current special effects, this second part should be a success. Again, under the direction of Tim Burton, repeating a large part of the main cast and new stars, such as William Dafoe and Jenna Ortega, who could do very well in this gloomy universe, with a very good reference for his performance in Wednesday. Everything predicts a good future delivery by September 5th. So far, we know that the trailer presents Winona Ryder as an adult, and her daughter Astrid, who is played by Jenna Ortega, returning to their old home in Winter River. Several years have passed, and after a tragedy, they are forced to return to where it all began. There, Astrid discovers the model of the town, and it will be a matter of time until she discovers the summoning of Beetlejuice. If more than adding, if you liked the video, a good like and subscription is appreciated to support this new channel with more content of this style. Until next time.